When the Church Fathers instituted the celebration of the Incarnation several centuries ago and established it as a major feast day on the church calendar, they would never have guessed in their wildest dreams that Christmas would one day become the involved holiday that it has become today, especially in regard to gift-giving. For the first several centuries, gift-giving wasn't even part of the Christmas tradition, and when it was finally introduced a few hundred years ago, it was of minor importance to the festival. Now, of course, in Western society, giving gifts is the primary activity of Christmas. It's a billion-dollar industry with holiday sales a leading economic indicator. Despite the rampant materialism that ensues this time of year, there is something wonderful about giving gifts to one another. Although I must confess, I've never been particularly good at doing it myself. It's probably one of my failings. You see, holiday shopping makes me very anxious. This all started 30 years ago during my first year of marriage. My wife, Lizzie, knew from the very beginning that I didn't have a clue what I was doing when it came to buying gifts. So just before our first Christmas, she sat me down and we wrote out a list of possible gifts that I might get her. She even supplied catalog page numbers. I remember she said, a sweater would be fine, any color but black. I have too many black ones. A blouse of some sort would be something to consider, but not a white one. And you might consider a Willie Nelson CD, but not such and such, because I already have a copy of that, she said. So I took notes, and I went off with my list, and with great enthusiasm and self-assurance. Of course, when the week before Christmas arrived and I was ready to shop, I couldn't find the list or the catalogs. I also didn't have the nerve to ask her again, so I tried to rely on my memory. Bad idea. All I could remember was black sweater, white blouse, and one particular Willie Nelson CD. I can still see her face when she unwrapped those 3 items Christmas morning. A frightening experience. I've never gotten over it, in fact. So Christmas shopping is for me a high anxiety activity. I just now usually write checks to Ms. Santa. It's much safer. All my personal issues aside, I find myself wondering every year if Christmas as a religious holiday is, well, redeemable. I suspect many of the faithful wonder about this as well. How do we as Christians reconcile this notion of Christmas as the great annual shopping bonanza with the belief that Christmas is the great incarnation of God? How do we move from giving stuff to one another to giving and receiving the love of Christ in this terribly broken world of ours? One of my favorite Christmas stories is about something that happened to a young woman working in New York in the 1960s. This woman, who was single, was employed as a reservations clerk for an airlines. But working for the airlines was not her passion. Her real passion was writing. And apparently she was pretty good at it. At least her friends thought she was. But her job occupied most of her life, so that she had seldom time to write. At some point, the woman was befriended by a well-to-do couple on the Upper East Side who were quite into writing themselves, or at least into books. The couple, who were also young, took great interest in the woman's well-being. They would invite her over for meals and include her in special occasions. One Christmas, the young woman was unable to return to her home in Alabama and spend time with her family because of her work schedule. This bothered her deeply. When the young couple heard of her plight, they immediately invited her over to spend Christmas with them and their 2 children in New York. Reluctantly, she agreed. On Christmas morning, the young woman found herself in front of the tree with the entire family watching excited children rip through a mountain of presents. Soon the young woman became painfully aware of the fact that everyone had something under the tree to open, but that she did not. Her disappointment grew, but she tried not to show it. Finally, the mother looked over at the young woman and said, "We haven't forgotten you. Look on the tree." After a moment, she found an envelope hanging on one of the branches. She opened it, and to her utter surprise, inside was a note that said, "You have 1 year off from your job to write whatever you please. Merry Christmas." You see, the couple believed in their friend. They believed she had talent as a writer, and they were willing to demonstrate their faith in her by supporting her financially. Their gift was intended to set her free from her regular job so that she could just write. And it did. Their faith was well placed. That young woman was Miss Harper Lee of Monroeville, Alabama. She received that gift of a year and used it to write the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel To Kill a Mockingbird, a book considered to be one of the greatest of all American novels. Years later, in an article about that special Christmas moment, she would write, "I went to the window, stunned by the day's miracle. Christmas trees blurred softly across the street, and firelight made the children's shadows dance on the wall beside me. A full, fair chance of a new life, not given me by an act of generosity, but by an act of love. Our faith in you was really all I heard them say. I would do my best not to fail them. Snow still fell on the pavement below. Brownstone roofs gradually withered. Lights in distant skyscrapers shone with yellow symbols of a road's lonely end. And as I stood at the window, looking at the lights and the snow, the ache of an old memory left me forever." At Christmas, we celebrate the incredible gift of God becoming flesh and dwelling among us as the Christ child. Through this gift, we learn that this God of ours, who sometimes seems so distant and unaware of us, actually has loved us very deeply all along, and loves us to such a degree that he is willing to take an incredible risk on our behalf. When fully considered, the real message of Christmas is enough to make you stop and hold your breath, if only for a little while, and in the stillness of time wonder at the majesty of it all. The question that I hope each one of us will ponder this Christmas is this: where is it that you might give the gift of life to another? It is one thing to simply mail packages or put presents under a tree. It is something altogether different to enable someone else to be whole, or to thrive, or be healthy, or to reach some new potential, to know joy or comfort, or to have new life. There are gifts and then there are holy gifts. The difference between the two isn't a matter of lavishness or expense or even effort. A holy gift is simply something on some deep level that is a reflection and an extension of that gift given to the world so long ago in Bethlehem. It's heartfelt in the deepest sense, and it's what Christmas is truly all about, and what we can be all about. I'll close with words by the famous chaplain of Harvard, Peter Gomes. "The child in the manger, heretical as this may sound, is not the end or even the object of Christmas. The child in the manger is the means whereby God defines his relationship with us, whereby his love is presented to the people whom he loves. The birth of Jesus is many, many things. It is miracle, it is mystery, it is mercy, it is ensign of hope, it is a word of justice, it is truth. It is all that, but much more than that. It is, as we often say at the Holy Communion, the gift of God for the people of God." Merry Christmas.